Look at you. Big, slow, and hiding behind cows like that makes you harmless. Sheriff Wade Kedar's boot scraped the dirt inches from Elias Boon's hand as deputies laughed and closed in around him. Men like you always think land papers matter, he said loudly, savoring every word. This farm's done. You're done. Elias stood still, dust streaking his faded shirt, hands open and visible, breath slow and controlled. He clocked the missing body cams. The deputy blocking the driveway. The evidence that had appeared where it hadn't been seconds earlier. To them, he was just a fat black farmer who wouldn't swing back. They had no idea they were cornering a man trained to endure humiliation, catalog threats, and decide exactly when to move. Before we continue, comment where in the world you're watching from, and make sure you're subscribed. Tomorrow's story is one you do not want to miss. Dawn crept over Elias Boon's farm like a hesitant visitor, fog hanging low and thick between the fence posts. Heavy moisture clung to his work clothes as he moved through his morning routine. Each step was deliberate and unhurried, the same path he'd walked 1,000 mornings before. The goats crowded around him, hooves thudding softly against the worn boards of their pen. Elias scratched behind old Betty's ears, his large hands gentle despite their strength. "Easy now," he murmured, portioning out feed with practiced efficiency. "Everybody gets their share." A flash of movement caught his eye, a dark county SUV crawling past his gate. Elias kept feeding, movements unchanged, but his eyes tracked the vehicle as it rolled by. 5 minutes later, it passed again, slower this time. The driver's face was hidden behind tinted glass, but Elias felt the weight of the stare. He waited until the SUV disappeared around the bend before setting down his feed bucket. Something wasn't right. The air felt charged with intention, making the hair on his neck stand up. He started walking his property line, checking each fence post and marker. That's when he saw them. Fresh wooden stakes hammered into the ground, bright orange plastic ribbons fluttering in the morning breeze. At least 10 feet inside his property line. Elias knelt, knees creaking, fingers running over the splintered top of one stake. The wood was fresh, raw. Done overnight. "Those weren't there yesterday evening," a voice called out. Across the road, Rena Dobbins stood on her porch, steaming coffee mug in her weathered hands. Her sharp eyes, lined by years, watched him with concern. "No, ma'am. They weren't," Elias replied, pulling out his phone. He took careful photos of each stake, capturing their position relative to his old boundary markers. The splintering. The boot prints in the soft earth. The way the ribbons pointed toward his barn. His hands stayed steady as he documented everything. Rena watched in silence. She'd lived in that county long enough to know what fresh survey stakes usually meant. And it was never good news for small farmers like Elias. Inside his kitchen, Elias dialed the county assessor's office. 4 rings. Then a bored voice. "County assessor's office. This is Elias Boon out on Route 7, he said, voice level. "I found survey stakes on my property I didn't authorize. Need to know who placed them and why." A long pause. Keyboard clicks. "I don't see any scheduled surveys for that area, Mr. Boon." "These stakes are inside my property line," Elias pressed. "Someone came onto my land without permission." "We'll have to look into it," the voice replied, dismissive. "Fill out a form on our website and someone will get back to you." "How long will that take?" "We'll look into it, sir." The line went dead. Elias set the phone down carefully, watching morning light play across the screen. Message received. No one was going to help. He stood, chair scraping against worn linoleum, and headed back outside. The fog was lifting, revealing fresh tire tracks he hadn't noticed before. They cut through the wet grass near his barn. The tread pattern was familiar, the same as the county SUV that had just passed. He followed them to more boot prints leading toward his milkhouse. Not just survey work. Someone had been moving around his buildings. He finished his morning checks without saying much to the animals, but they felt it anyway. The goats stayed closer than usual. Even the standoffish barn cat wound around his ankles. At the main gate, he double-checked the chain, making sure it was properly secured. His phone felt heavy in his pocket, charged, full of photos that might mean nothing. Or everything. The sun had nearly burned off the last wisps of fog when he heard it. Sirens. Faint at first, then growing, cutting through the peaceful morning like knives. Multiple vehicles, coming fast. Heading straight for his driveway. Elias's hands stayed loose at his sides. Breathing steady. The animals went quiet. The sound bounced off his barn, closer with each heartbeat. He thought about the stakes. The mysterious SUV. The prints near his milk house. All pieces of a puzzle he was starting to understand too late. Gravel crunched as 3 patrol cars and a county truck swung into his driveway. They fanned out in a practiced formation, blocking his barn entrance and main gate. Sheriff Wade Kedar stepped out first, adjusting his hat in theatrical slow motion. His smile never reached his eyes as he looked over the property like a man already counting what he could take. Deputy Lyle Griggs emerged next, practically bouncing on his feet, eager as a guard dog straining at its leash. 3 more deputies spread out behind them, hands resting casually on their belts. "Morning, Mr. Boon," Kedar called, voice carrying with practiced authority. "Got some matters we need to discuss." Elias stood his ground near the barn door. The goats huddled silent, even the chickens pausing their morning scratching. "Sheriff," Elias replied evenly. "What brings you out here?" Kedar held up a paper, waving it like a flag. "Emergency search authorization. Got some concerning reports about this property." "What kind of reports?" Elias's voice stayed calm, but his eyes tracked everything. Griggs circling to his blind side. 2 deputies conspicuously missing body cams. "Anonymous tips," Kedar said, smile fixed. "Stolen farm equipment, unlicensed sales, illegal livestock operations. You know how it is. Concerned citizens doing their civic duty." Griggs stepped close, invading Elias's space. Coffee and cheap satisfaction on his breath. "Bet we find all kinds of interesting things, won't we, boy?" Elias didn't blink at the word. "I'd like to see that authorization," he said, eyes on Kedar. "And I'll need all your badge numbers for my records." The smile dropped off Kedar's face. Griggs moved like he'd been waiting for that cue. He grabbed Elias's arm and spun him around with unnecessary force. "On the ground," Griggs barked, kicking at the back of his knees. Elias could have resisted. His muscles knew exactly how to counter the hold. Instead, he let himself be driven down, face pressed into the damp dirt by his own barn door. Dew soaked through his shirt. "There we go." Griggs laughed, grinding his knee into Elias's back. "Not so big now, are you?" Kedar's boots appeared in Elias's field of vision. "We're just doing our job here, Mr. Boon. Keeping the county safe," he said loudly, playing to an audience Elias couldn't see. "Can't have people thinking they're above the law." Deputies fanned out. Elias tracked them by sound. Boots stomping through his vegetable garden. The crash of feed bins kicked over. Animals bleating in distress as gates rattled. "Check everything," Kedar called. "These types always think they can hide things in plain sight." Elias focused on his breathing. Cataloging. Which deputies were filming? Which weren't? How Griggs's hand shook with excitement. The specific mud pattern on Kedar's boots, the same tread he'd seen near the milkhouse. "Sir, this door is locked," a deputy called from the storage shed. "Well, unlock it," Kedar replied. Metal clanked as a padlock. His padlock was cut. Through the slit under the barn door, Elias watched Boots move near his tool bench. A hand dropped something small and plastic. Deliberate. Careful. The same Boots shifted, then stepped back. "Sheriff," the deputy called. "Got something here." "Well, well," the man said, bending to pick up what he'd just planted. "Look what we found." A small baggie dangled from his fingers. Pills. He grinned, no shame, no hesitation. Just the look of someone who'd done this before and expected to do it again. Dust plumed from the road as a weathered blue sedan screeched to a halt. Tessa Valles burst out, press badge swinging, phone already live. Her dark hair pulled loose from its braid as she jogged toward the gate, narrating in a clear, steady voice. "I'm live at the Boon family farm, where what appears to be an unauthorized police raid is in progress," she said, camera on the cluster of patrol cars. "Multiple deputies on scene, no warrant visible, and She zoomed in on Elias, pinned to the ground. What looks like excessive force being used on the property owner. Kedar's head snapped up. His whole demeanor shifted, like a switch flipped. Predatory stance softened into something camera-friendly. He adjusted his belt, smoothed his uniform, turned to Tessa with a practiced smile. "Miss Velez," he called, hands open. "Always a pleasure to have our local media taking an interest in law enforcement operations. Sheriff, can you explain why Mr. Boon is being held down when he appears to be cooperating?" Tessa asked. "And can you show us the warrant for this search?" Griggs's knee never left Elias's back, but his expression turned uncertain, eyes flicking between Tessa's camera and Kedar. "Now, Miss Velez," Kedar's voice dripped manufactured patience. "We're conducting a legitimate investigation based on multiple community complaints. We have proper authorization." "That's not the same as a warrant," Tessa cut in, stepping closer. Her camera caught deputies hauling out armfuls of Elias's paperwork. "Are those private documents being seized without a court order?" More vehicles stopped along the road. Neighbors gathered in small knots. Rena Dobbins stood at the front, arms crossed, expression hard. Whispers rose. "What they doing to Elias? Ain't right. All these cops." Kedar kept his smile, but his eyes went cold. "We're simply following procedure here, folks. Nothing to be concerned about." Elias felt the pressure of Griggs's knee lighten, just a bit, now that he was being filmed. He stayed still, watching, waiting. Tessa panned her phone across the scene, narrating details. Deputies are searching buildings without showing cause. Animals appear distressed. Mr. Boon is still being held down despite no visible resistance. I count at least 2 deputies without active body cams. Her live stream stuttered. The image froze, then resumed in lower quality. Tessa frowned, tapping the screen. "Having some technical difficulties, but we're still." The video froze again, longer this time. Kedar's friendly mask thinned. He stepped toward her, placing his body between her camera and the milkhouse. "Miss Velez, you're approaching an active law enforcement operation," he said. "Could be dangerous. Wouldn't want you to get hurt." The threat wore a thin coat of concern. Elias heard a low electronic hum from the county truck. A deputy adjusted something in the cab. Every time Tessa's stream stabilized, the hum spiked, and her feed died seconds later. Too perfect to be coincidence. Other neighbors raised their phones, but their recordings glitched the same way. Rena stepped forward, voice cutting through the tension. "We're all watching, Wade. All of us." Kedar's smile sharpened. "Then you'll all see we're just doing our jobs." He nodded to Griggs. "Deputy, secure that phone. Can't have her endangering herself or our operation." Griggs released Elias and lunged at Tessa. She stepped back, clutching her phone, but he grabbed her wrist. "That's police evidence now," he sneered, twisting until her fingers opened. The phone hit the ground. Griggs snatched it up, holding it overhead like a trophy. Tessa rubbed her wrist. The crowd erupted in angry murmurs. "Just keeping everyone safe," Kedar called loudly, still performing. But his eyes were cold and satisfied as the last live connection went dark in Griggs's hand. The electronic hum from the truck continued. With the live stream dead, the sounds of deputies tearing through Elias's farm felt louder. Cruder. More confident. By afternoon, the sun beat down mercilessly as Rena strode across Elias's yard, a thick manila folder clutched to her chest like armor. "Wade Kedar," she called, her voice cracking across the yard. "I've got some interesting reading material here you might want to see." Kedar turned slowly. His smile flickered as he recognized the retired school secretary who'd kept county records for 30 years. "Mrs. Dobbins," he said smoothly, "this is a police operation. You need to stay back with the others." "Police operation," Rena snorted, flipping open her folder. "More like a land grab. Just like the Johnston place last spring. And the Rodriguez farm before that." She waved a sheet with neat columns. "Funny how it always starts the same way. Surprise inspections. Mysterious complaints. Evidence that appears out of nowhere." Griggs stepped forward, looming over her. "Ma'am, you're interfering with—" "I'm reading public records, deputy," Rena cut in, not moving. She held up another paper. Like these property transfers. Every seized farm sold at auction for pennies. And look who keeps buying through shell companies. She jabbed a finger toward the survey stakes. Calran Development. Same company that just filed permits for this exact acreage. Elias watched Kedar's jaw tighten at the name. The stakes. The raids. The planted evidence. This wasn't about drugs or stolen equipment. It was about his land. Mrs. Dobbins, Kedar said, voice hardening, you're working yourself up over nothing. We received credible reports. Anonymous tips, just like always, Rena interrupted. Right before the surveys show up. Right before the raids start. She pulled out more pages. I've got dates, Wade. Times. License plates of county vehicles cruising past targeted properties. Patterns of harassment that somehow never make it into official reports. Griggs moved closer, hand resting on his belt. That sounds like accusations against law enforcement, ma'am. Could be considered slander. Elias saw the threat in his posture. Without sudden movements, he stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on Rena's shoulder, sliding his body between her and Griggs. His size did what his words didn't need to. The records speak for themselves, Rena said, allowing Elias to shield her. Public documents. Including new survey permits that got approved before anyone notified the property owner. At the edge of the scene, Tessa argued with the deputy holding her confiscated phone. That's personal property containing evidence of police misconduct, she insisted. You have no right to. One more word about rights, Griggs called over, and you'll be riding to the station in cuffs. Obstruction's a serious charge, girl. So is tampering with evidence, Tessa shot back. Like that signal jammer in the county truck. Kedar's friendly mask fell away completely. Deputy Griggs, secure that phone as evidence, he said. Miss Velez can file a formal request to retrieve any personal items not related to our investigation. He turned back to the crowd, raising his voice. Folks, we've discovered illegal substances on the premises. He held up the planted baggie. Given the severity of these findings, we're implementing emergency protocols. County Animal Control will be taking temporary custody of all livestock for their safety and the public good. Elias felt his chest tighten. The animals were his livelihood, his history, his future. Taking them would break the farm, verdict or not. You can't just, Tessa began. We can and we will, Kedar cut in. We have probable cause of criminal activity. That gives us broad authority to secure the property and any assets that could be related to illegal operations. The crowd shifted. Some neighbors slipped back to their cars, not wanting to be seen choosing sides. Others avoided Elias's eyes. Rena clutched her folder harder. This is robbery with a badge, Wade. And you know it. This, Kedar replied, pulling a fresh paper from his pocket, is a notice of criminal charges. He slapped it against Elias's chest. Possession of controlled substances. Resisting inspection. Interfering with law enforcement. County officers will be stationed here starting tonight to secure the premises and prevent evidence tampering. Elias took the paper without changing expression, though his mind raced. They weren't just trying to arrest him. They were setting up to take everything while he was buried in court. The raid wasn't the end. It was the opening move. By the time the last patrol car pulled away, the sun hung low and angry on the horizon. They left behind upturned feed bins, scattered papers, and shaken animals. Elias immediately started his own sweep, photographing every bit of damage with mechanical precision. In Rena's kitchen, she spread documents across the table like battle plans. Tessa paced, scribbling furiously in a spiral notebook she'd borrowed after they took her phone. Write down everything you saw, Rena said. Times. Faces. Exact words. Especially that deputy who planted the evidence. The way Griggs moved, Tessa said, pen flying. He knew exactly where to put that bag. Like they'd rehearsed it. They did, Rena replied, sorting through papers. Just like they planned the timing of those survey stakes. She checked her watch, jotting a fresh time entry. 3 raids in 6 months. All following the same pattern. Elias came in, boots wiped clean. He filled his old coffee maker, the familiar scent cutting through the tension. "How bad?" Rena asked. "Feed scattered. Storage bins overturned. Animals spooked, not hurt," he answered calmly. "They broke the east barn latch. Tried to make it look accidental." "They'll say you did it yourself," Tessa muttered. "Claim you were destroying evidence. Already photographed it. Time-stamped." Elias moved to the small stack of mail. Near the bottom, a heavy cream-colored envelope bore a federal seal. He opened it. His eyes skimmed the brief, cold language tying his name back to an operation from his past, one that was supposed to stay buried in classified files. It wasn't a direct threat, but the meaning was clear. His history could be turned into a weapon against him if the wrong people wanted it. "They'll try to make me the villain," he said quietly, folding the letter with precise creases. He didn't explain further, but the weight of it settled over the room. As twilight fell, he checked each animal pen again, counting heads, refilling water. His movements were unhurried but purposeful. A man fortifying for a siege. "We need copies," Rena said, sliding papers into plastic sleeves. "Multiple sets, different locations. They'll try to discredit everything. And we need eyes on the property," Tessa added. "They took my phone, but I can borrow equipment. Set up cameras." Headlights swept across the kitchen window, cutting her off. A patrol car crawled past, pausing at the gate. "Just sitting there." "They won't wait long," Elias said, watching from the window. "Pressure starts now." He walked out to repair the broken barn latch. The car idled at the gate, watching. When it finally pulled away, another set of headlights appeared minutes later, moving even slower. By full dark, a bright spotlight snapped on, locking onto the barn door and holding steady. Washing out the night. Inside the barn, Elias stood motionless among his goats. A young one pressed against his leg. He rested his hand on its back, feeling the familiar curl of wool. The spotlight remained, turning the door into a stage. Through the side window, he saw Rena's porch light burning, her silhouette moving behind curtains. In his house, Tessa's borrowed flashlight bobbed as she documented the property line with an old disposable camera. Small acts of resistance. Piece by piece. At his kitchen table, under the ticking clock, Elias opened a lined notebook and started writing. Times. Badge numbers. Exact phrases Kedar and Griggs had used. He called the sheriff's office, leaving a clear voicemail requesting copies of the day's authorization and all body cam footage. Then he called law firms. "Conflict of interest," each one said in polite tones. "We have contracts with the county." In Rena's house, Tessa had the landline wedged to her ear, pitching the story to a regional news desk. "No, I don't have video right now," she said. "They confiscated my phone. But I have eyewitnesses and—" She stopped. "Hello. Hello." Dead line. Outside, patrol cars started a rhythm. Passing every 45 minutes. Shaking his gate chain. Laughing when the metal rattled. They wanted him to come storming out. To give them an excuse. Elias stayed where they could see him, calm, visible through the window. The cheap digital camera Rena had loaned him sat ready next to his notebook. Each drive-by got a timestamp, a license plate, and a line in his record. Near 1 a.m., as he topped off water troughs, he heard a soft metallic click at the barn's side door. Subtle. Metal on metal. Someone testing the lock. He went still. No follow-up noise. No footsteps. Just silence, heavy with intent. He didn't turn on his light. He didn't rush outside. He just let his eyes adjust to the dark, breathing slow, fingers curling around the camera. The message was clear enough. "We can reach your animals anytime." The next morning, the feed store felt different the moment he walked in. The same dusty windows. Same creaking floors. Same smell of grain and leather. Different eyes. Mrs. Henderson, usually all smiles about her chickens, suddenly remembered something in the back room as he neared. Tom Wilson, his neighbor to the north, studied feed prices like they were written in another language. Nobody met his gaze. Elias loaded his cart anyway. Grain. Mineral blocks. Basic medical supplies. The bell jingled. Deputy Griggs swaggered in, this time in jeans and a tight t-shirt that showed off his gym build. No visible badge, but his gun was plain on his hip. "Well, look who it is," Griggs called, voice carrying across the store. "The big man himself." He sauntered down Elias's aisle, blocking the path. "Surprised you're still buying supplies," he smirked. "Seems like a waste of money, considering." Elias pretended to read the ingredients list he already knew by heart. "You know what I can't figure out?" Griggs stepped even closer. "How folks like you think you can just set up shop wherever you want. This ain't exactly your kind of place, is it?" The paper feed bag crinkled under Elias's grip. "Excuse me, deputy. I need to get by." "Oh, now it's deputy," Griggs mocked. "Real respectful. You should be grateful we let you stay out here at all." He rocked his shoulder forward, slamming into Elias hard enough to jostle the bag. It slipped and hit the floor. Grain spilled into a little golden pool. The few customers who'd remained suddenly found reasons to be somewhere else. The owner locked himself in his office with his phone. Elias knelt slowly, knees complaining. One handful at a time, he collected the spilled grain. Measured. Jaw tight. Griggs's boots hovered inches from his fingers. "Look at you," Griggs chuckled. "Right where you belong. Down there. Cleaning up your mess." He kicked a few kernels farther away. "Better get used to it. Animal Control's making a special trip out today. Guess they heard about your management issues." Elias kept his breathing steady, fingers moving methodically. Bullies wanted reaction. Training had taught him how to deny it. "Nothing to say." Griggs pressed. "That's smart. Keep your head down. Stay quiet. Maybe we'll let you play farmer a while longer." Elias stood, a neat mound of grain cupped in his palms. "I need to pay for this, deputy," he said softly. Griggs's jaw tightened at the lack of reaction, but he stepped aside with mock ceremony. "Don't let me stop you. Public servant. That's me. Here to help." His hand brushed his gun. Elias paid, loaded what he could, and walked out at the same steady pace he'd walked in. Outside, the air felt hotter. In the far corner, half hidden by a delivery truck, Tessa's dusty sedan waited. She slipped out to meet him, notebook in hand. "I saw everything," she whispered. "They're coordinating, Elias. The feed store. The threats. Animal Control. It's all part of the same pattern." She swiped her phone, showing a blurry screenshot, her live stream freezing the previous day at the exact moment a county maintenance truck's lights flicked on. "Signal died the second they powered up," she said. "They've got jammers. The same kind they use on drug raids. They're playing a bigger game than just harassment." Elias said nothing, but the grain dust on his hands trembled slightly. Not from fear. From effort. From the strain of holding all that anger in place. His truck tires crunched on gravel as he turned into his driveway, and braked hard. A white Animal Control truck. 2 patrol cars. All parked in his yard, doors hanging open. Kedar stood by the barn entrance, hands on his belt, wearing that same rehearsed smile. Griggs paced by the goat pen, tapping a steel batten against his leg. 2 handlers in khaki uniforms wrestled portable gates, forming a chute to their truck's ramp. Elias parked, shut off the engine, and stepped out visibly, slow. "Mr. Boon," Kedar called, waving a single sheet of paper. "Emergency livestock seizure. For their safety and the public good." "I need to see that paperwork," Elias said, voice calm. The language was vague. "Reasonable concern. Temporary custody. No listed violations. No judge's signature. Just county letterhead and Kedar's scrawl." Across the road, Rena's porch door slammed. She stepped out, raising an arm. The red light on her security camera blinked steadily, pointed straight at the yard. 11:17 a.m., she called clearly. 4 vehicles present. No proper warrant shown. Tessa appeared beside her hedge, lifting a borrowed flip phone to record. The handlers wrestled Elias's goats, trying to force them up the ramp. The animals resisted, eyes wide. One handler yanked a young doe hard by the collar. "Careful," Elias warned, stepping forward. "They're dairy goats, not cattle. You'll hurt." The man cursed and kicked the doe's hindquarters. Her legs buckled. She collapsed with a bleat that sliced straight through Elias. The other goats scattered, panicked cries filling the air. Something shifted in Elias's stance. Small. Almost invisible. His hands were still open. But his weight settled. "Stop," he said. Low. Controlled. "You're hurting them. Let me move them properly." "He's resisting," Griggs shouted instantly. "Take him down." 2 deputies rushed him, expecting the same easy compliance as before. The first grabbed at his arm. Elias stepped slightly left, letting the man's momentum carry past him. The second lunged. Elias caught his wrist in a precise grip and stepped through the gap between them. The movement was clean. Almost gentle. The second deputy flipped over Elias's planted leg, landing on the grass without hitting his head. The first stumbled and landed hard on his backside, confused about how he'd ended up there. The yard froze. The animal handlers backed away from the goat pen. Nobody moved toward Elias. He hadn't thrown a punch. Hadn't raised his voice. But the way he stood now, balanced, ready, utterly in control, made Kedar take 3 quick steps back. "Don't move," Kedar shouted, hand dropping to his holster. His face flushed, not just with anger, with fear. "He's trained," he yelled, pointing at Elias. "He's dangerous." Sirens started again in the distance. Elias didn't move. Hands open at his sides. His injured doe limped toward him and pressed against the fence, trusting him to fix what he could. 11:23 a.m., Rena's voice rang out. Excessive force attempted against unarmed landowner. Owner showed legal restraint in self-defense. Tessa's phone stayed up, recording every frame. By late afternoon, the yard was quieter but still coiled tight. The animal control truck sat at an awkward angle, ramp still down, empty. Kedar huddled with his deputies by the patrol cars, voices low and urgent. A gleaming black SUV with tinted windows rolled up the lane, tires on gravel whispering money. It stopped in a perfect spot, close enough to talk, far enough to leave in a hurry. The man who stepped out moved like he'd rehearsed it. Early 40s. Casual clothes that cost more than a month's feed. Perfect smile. Flat eyes. "Mr. Boon," he called, strolling over. "I'm Cal Wren. I heard about this morning's unfortunate situation." He held out a bottle of water, like he was dropping in to help a neighbor fix a fence. "Thought you might need this. It's been quite a day." Elias didn't take it. "I represent certain development interests in the county," Cal continued, setting the bottle on a fence post when Elias didn't move. "We've been watching this area's potential. I think I might have a solution that works for everyone." He pulled a leather folder from the SUV and spread papers across a workbench, casual as a card trick. "Simple purchase offer. Fair market value, considering current conditions." Elias glanced at the number. Half what the land was worth. Maybe less. "That's robbery," Rena snapped from the fence. "I've seen your name on those transfer records, Mr. Wren. Always buying after code violations and seizures." Cal's smile didn't change, but his eyes did. "Mrs. Dobbins, isn't it? Always so civic-minded." He turned slightly, angling his body to shield the papers from Tessa's lens. "But this is a private business discussion." "Mr. Boon," he said, voice dropping, "I understand your background makes certain situations complicated. The county could frame things very unfortunately if this continues. Legal fees alone could bankrupt you before truth matters." He tapped the offer sheet. "This is a lifeline. A clean exit before things get messy." The threat was wrapped in silk. Elias heard it clearly. "Not interested," he said, voice flat. "Sleep on it," Cal replied, smile sharpening. "Things can get very expensive very fast. Ask anyone who's tried fighting the system. Fines. Surprise inspections. Permits suddenly needing review." He straightened his already straight jacket. "The smart play is taking a fair offer while it's available." Tessa's camera clicked as he walked back to his SUV. She zoomed in on his license plate and company logo. After the SUV left in a cloud of dust, Elias checked his animals. The injured doe was standing, still favoring one leg. He ran soft hands down her flank, checking for hidden damage. That's when he saw the fresh scuff marks around his storage shed lock. Pale wood scraped raw where dark paint had been. Someone had opened it. His stomach tightened. Rena approached, lowering her camera. "I've got all of it," she said. "Every word. Every threat. That man's been buying up seized properties for months." Elias stared at the damaged lock. They weren't just trying to push him out. They were building a case to bury him. That evening, in Rena's kitchen, the table looked like a war room. Laptop. Folders. A small printer. Tessa hunched over a borrowed phone, frustration etched in her face. "They're blocking everything," she said. "Main account locked for suspicious activity. Backup flagged for harassment the second I posted about the raid. Even DMs are failing. Someone's watching my accounts. And," she swallowed, "they're posting old stuff about me. I got caught shoplifting when I was 16. Records were sealed, but they dug them up. They're calling me a criminal. Trying to kill my credibility before I can report anything." Elias checked his banking app. Red banner, account access limited under review. "Insurance company," he added, reading an email. "Due to increased risk factors and pending investigation, your farm policy is terminated effective immediately." "They're moving faster than usual," Rena said, pulling an older folder. "Normally they stretch this out over weeks. They want gone yesterday. We've got something they don't expect," she continued. "I've been tracking this pattern since the Williams farm went under last year. Every seizure. Every violation. Every anonymous tip." She unfolded a hand-drawn map covered in colored pins. Red, properties seized in the last 18 months. Blue, pending violations. Green, where Cal's shell companies bought in afterward. She drew a line through the pins. "They're building a corridor. Your place is the missing piece. We need to document everything tonight," Tessa said. "Property lines. Locks. Anything they might try to alter. In the morning we hit the courthouse, file everything with every office that might listen." "Use my old camera," Rena said, passing over a chunky digital model. "They can hack phones. They can't erase these as easy." Headlights swept across the front windows again. Bright. Slow. The car didn't pass. It stopped. A patrol spotlight pinned Rena's house in white glare. "They're watching every move," Elias said, standing back from the curtains. "Let them watch," Rena answered, though her voice wavered. "I've got copies of everything in 3 different places. If anything happens to me, the whole file goes public." The car finally rolled on. Later, back at his farm, Elias walked up to his storage shed with flashlight and camera. The lock gleamed too bright. Brand new silver against old, weathered wood. Not his lock. Not his key. Someone had come while he was at Rena's. Changed his security. Cut him off from his own shed, where he'd hidden documents tied to his classified past. He photographed it from every angle. Fresh scratches. Metal shavings on the ground. Nothing here is truly yours anymore. Night pressed in. Watchful. Waiting. Soon enough, more headlights. 2 county vehicles rolled through the gate, doors opening as they idled near the shed. The lead car's spotlight hit him full on. "Evening, Mr. Boon," Kedar called, stepping out like he owned the place. "Got ourselves another tip. Weapons, this time. Can't ignore that kind of public safety concern. Especially not with your background." Griggs climbed out, hand on his holster. "You changed my lock," Elias said. "Why would we do that?" Kedar smiled. "Maybe you did it. Trying to hide something." He waved some paperwork. "Need to see inside that shed. Officer safety. Not without a warrant." Griggs walked forward with bolt cutters. "Could be an emergency. Don't need a warrant if we've got probable cause." "Don't touch it," Elias said. "Quiet. Firm. You know that's not legal." Griggs laughed. "Legal? Way I see it, you're interfering again." More patrol cars arrived. Neighbors peeked from windows, porch lights flicking on. Kedar raised his voice. Everyone stay back. Possible weapons situation here. For your safety. Tessa stepped from her car, phone filming. Sheriff, can you explain why you're searching private property at nearly 11 at night? A deputy moved fast, snatching her phone. Evidence in an ongoing investigation. Evidence of what? She demanded. Your illegal search. Kedar held up a crisp sheet of paper. We do have authorization. Signed by Judge Marshall this evening. Elias recognized the name. The same judge who'd rubber-stamped every emergency they'd thrown at small farmers. Hands behind your back, Griggs ordered, stepping up, eyes hungry. Now. Elias looked at the numbers. The angles. The nervous glances of a few younger deputies. He could drop 3 of them before they cleared leather. That was what they wanted. He turned slowly and let them cuff him. Your farm will be a lot safer under county management, Griggs whispered, shoving him into the back seat. By sunrise, nobody will believe you. Hours later, at 12:01 a.m., Rena's old Volvo idled in the county jail lot. Steam rose from 2 gas station coffees sitting untouched. Tessa spread photos across the dashboard, survey stakes, damaged locks, county trucks. Rena opened a thick folder with 17 tabs. 17 similar raids in 14 months, she said. Every single one ended in seized property or a forced sale. All that land went to shell companies. Tessa booted an old backup laptop from her trunk and connected a mobile hotspot, not trusting any local Wi-Fi. They'll try to shut this down, she said. So we don't give them time. Rena dialed a civil rights hotline, speaking clearly into the phone. This is Rena Dobbins, Riverside County. I'm calling to report ongoing civil rights violations and a coordinated property theft conspiracy. On the laptop, Tessa built an encrypted folder and started uploading evidence. Photographs, timelines, screenshots showing signal jamming logs lined up to Tessa's live stream drops. Once you see it laid out, it's obvious, she said. Truck powers up. Signal dies. Every time. At 1:45 a.m., Rena's phone buzzed with a text. Denise Sutter is coming, she said. Civil rights attorney. My contact at Legal Aid got through to her. She's been watching this county. 30 minutes later, a battered blue pickup pulled into the lot. Attorney Denise Sutter stepped out with a worn leather briefcase. Jeans. Blazer. Sharp eyes. Show me everything, she said. Start with the pattern. For an hour, they spread documents across the hood of Rena's car. Denise listened, asked precise questions, scribbled notes, and watched the pattern form. This is a conspiracy, she said finally. Now we prove it. She started firing off texts. We file emergency motions now. I want a hearing at first light, before they can clean this up. Civil rights violations. Evidence tampering. Misuse of emergency powers. Conspiracy under color of law. Inside his cell, Elias sat on a cold concrete bench, listening to the muted laughter of deputies down the hall. He breathed the way he'd been trained, slow, measured, conserving energy. Waiting. At 3:15 a.m., Denise submitted the last emergency motion. Time stamped. Official. The machinery had started turning. By 8 a.m., under buzzing fluorescent lights, Elias stood in courtroom B beside Denise, back in his worn farm clothes. Behind them, Rena clutched her folder. Tessa balanced a borrowed notepad on her knee. Judge Marion Hewitt read the emergency motions, brow tightening. Kedar lounged at the prosecution table. Relaxed. Smug. Until Denise stood. Your Honor, she began, voice clear and firm, the probable cause in this case isn't just flawed, it's manufactured. She projected a timeline on the screen. The anonymous tip about weapons arrived precisely 7 minutes after my client's shed lock was replaced without his knowledge. Not before. After. Explain the lock, the judge said, leaning forward. Mr. Boon documented his original lock at 6 p.m., Denise replied, clicking through Elias's photos. At 9:47 p.m., neighbor security footage shows county vehicles at his property. At 10:15 p.m., the lock is visibly different. At 10:22 p.m., the sheriff's office logs an anonymous tip about weapons. Her finger stabbed the timeline. This is not coincidence. She flipped to copies of the so-called authorizations. The initial raid used an emergency authorization that does not exist in county code. The livestock seizure notice lacks required signatures. And here, she showed dispatch logs, deputies claim to be at 2 locations simultaneously. This isn't law enforcement, Your Honor. It's orchestrated harassment designed to force my client off his land. Judge Hewitt removed her glasses and looked at Kedar. Sheriff, would you care to explain these discrepancies? Kedar stood, smoothing his uniform. Your Honor, we're dealing with a trained combat veteran with aggressive tendencies. These technical complaints about paperwork don't change the threat he poses. That is not what I asked, the judge cut in. I asked about your warrants and your timing. Try again. Silence. Bond is granted, Judge Hewitt announced. Mr. Boon will avoid direct contact with sheriff's deputies except through counsel. He will remain within county limits and continue normal farming operations. She turned back to Kedar. And the sheriff's office will cease all surveillance and property inspections without properly filed warrants. Real ones. Understood. Outside, cameras swarmed the courthouse steps. Reporters thrust microphones at Kedar. He slipped right back into performance mode. Folks, we're dealing with a highly trained individual, he said. Combat experience. Special operations. Now he's showing volatile behavior right here in our community. He's poisoning the jury pool, Denise muttered to Elias, steering him past. But every word is going on record. They followed Elias's truck back to the farm. Denise filmed on her dash cam. Even from the gate, it was obvious something was wrong. The barn door hung crooked, dented inward. A pen latch twisted and broken. Feed scattered. The goat pen empty. A faint streak of blood on a rail. Wait, Denise said, raising her phone. Let me document this before you touch anything. Elias walked the property like a crime scene tech. Counting. Photographing. His animals weren't just gone. They'd been taken. A patrol car rolled up the lane. Griggs stepped out, swagger back in place. Heard they let you out, he called. Guess that fancy lawyer helped. But you're still going down, boy. Matter of time. You need to leave my property, Elias said evenly. Or what? Griggs stepped into his space. You gonna show everybody that combat training? I'm a farmer, Elias replied. Nothing more. Lying sack of. Griggs lunged, grabbing Elias's shirt with both hands. What happened next lasted less than 3 seconds. Elias turned into the grab, stripping Griggs's hands from his shirt. A shift of weight. A small twist. Griggs found himself pinned briefly against the fence, controlled but unharmed. Then Elias stepped back, hands open. From the road, Tessa's borrowed camera caught everything, Griggs starting it, Elias ending it without a single strike. Griggs scrambled up, face burning. His hand twitched toward his gun, then stopped when he saw the cameras. He spat a curse and stormed back to his cruiser. Good, Denise said quietly, lowering her own phone. Now we have their aggression on video. Back in the kitchen that afternoon, the table filled again. Denise laid out fresh legal forms. Write exactly what you saw, she told each of them. No emotions. No guesses. Facts only. We don't give them anything they can poke holes in. Elias documented every raid. Every quote. Every missing body cam. Rena lined up her records, dates, plate numbers, property transfers, establishing premeditation. Tessa detailed every instance of signal interference, matching timestamps to county equipment logs she'd captured. At 5:45 p.m., Denise's phone buzzed. She read the message, then smiled. The State Investigation Unit accepted our packet, she said. They're coordinating with federal civil rights. This is bigger than Kedar now. Minutes later, Tessa's main social account was suspended. Her backup triggered automatically, blasting their evidence to journalists, watchdog groups, and civil rights lawyers across the country. They can't bury this anymore, Tessa said, watching the shares climb. Too many eyes. By 7:30, 2 unmarked sedans with state plates pulled into the drive. 4 investigators stepped out, quiet and professional. They photographed everything. Survey stakes with GPS coordinates. The dented barn. The broken latch. The blood smear. They paid special attention to the shed. The new lock. The scratches. They removed it carefully and tagged it. "We'll be executing warrants at the sheriff's office tonight," the lead investigator said. "Do not engage with deputies. If they come, record and call us." They drove off into the dark, leaving the farmhouse kitchen feeling less like a refuge and more like headquarters. Denise's phone buzzed again. She read the text twice, then looked at Elias. "They lied under oath," she said. "The body cam archive has been located." The footage that was supposed to be missing wasn't missing at all. It was sitting in an evidence room, waiting. The next morning, under high ceilings and cold lights, state investigators played those body cams in open court. Deputies removing cameras before entering Elias's property. Griggs clearly planting the baggie near the tool bench. Audio of jokes about clearing Boon out for the developer. Logs showing county signal jammers activated right when Tessa's streams died. Text messages between deputies coordinating their stories. By noon, it was over for them. Sheriff Wade Kedar walked out of the courthouse in handcuffs, escorted by state police. Civil rights violations. Evidence tampering. Conspiracy. The same cameras he'd used for grandstanding now captured him ducking his head. Deputy Lyle Griggs followed, no uniform now, fired on the spot when his body cam contradicted his sworn statements. His own handcuffing techniques used on him as he snarled at journalists. Cal Wren tried to leave through a side door. Investigators met him there. Fraud. Corruption. Property theft tied to rigged code enforcement and sheriff's raids. The county commission called an emergency meeting and froze all pending property transfers. Investigations into every seizure began. On the courthouse steps, reporters turned their cameras on Rena. "We saw wrong being done," she told them. "We kept records. We didn't back down." That evening, Elias drove home to a sight he hadn't expected. Trucks lined his fence. Neighbors, some who'd looked away in the feed store, stood in his yard with tools and lumber. Nobody gave speeches. They just started working. Barn door rehung. Latches replaced. Fences rest-rung. Temporary shelters put up. Someone had pulled strings to get his animals released from county holding. His goats crowded the fence, bleating as he walked pen to pen, checking each one. The young doe limped, but she was there. Rena arrived with a check, the first installment of restitution the county would owe. "We're starting a community legal fund with it," she said. "So the next person they target isn't fighting alone." At sunset, Elias lifted a new sign onto its posts at the front of his drive. Simple white letters. Solid wood. Boon Family Farm. Still here. He leveled it carefully as Tessa filmed with her borrowed camera. This time, not as an act of desperation, but as proof. Neighbors kept working as darkness fell, stringing temporary lights to finish repairs. The farm, once an isolated target, had become a symbol of something else entirely. When Elias's phone buzzed, it was messages from other farmers. Other towns. People who'd seen the story and realized their own wasn't so different. The same tactics. The same pressure. The same fear. Now, they knew there was another way to respond. Not by lashing out. By documenting. By standing together. By refusing to disappear quietly. They'd been taken. A patrol car rolled up the lane. Griggs stepped out, swagger back in place. "Heard they let you out," he called. "Guess that fancy lawyer helped. But you're still going down, boy. Matter of time." "You need to leave my property," Elias said evenly. "Or what?" Griggs stepped into his space. "You gonna show everybody that combat training?" "I'm a farmer," Elias replied. "Nothing more. Lying sack of—" Griggs lunged, grabbing Elias's shirt with both hands. What happened next lasted less than 3 seconds. Elias turned into the grab, stripping Griggs's hands from his shirt. A shift of weight. A small twist. Griggs found himself pinned briefly against the fence, controlled but unharmed. Then Elias stepped back, hands open. From the road, Tessa's borrowed camera caught everything, Griggs starting it, Elias ending it without a single strike. Griggs scrambled up, face burning. His hand twitched toward his gun, then stopped when he saw the cameras. He spat a curse and stormed back to his cruiser. "Good," Denise said quietly, lowering her own phone. "Now we have their aggression on video." Back in the kitchen that afternoon, the table filled again. Denise laid out fresh legal forms. "Write exactly what you saw," she told each of them. "No emotions. No guesses. Facts only. We don't give them anything they can poke holes in." Elias documented every raid, every quote, every missing body cam. Rena lined up her records, dates, plate numbers, property transfers, establishing premeditation. Tessa detailed every instance of signal interference, matching timestamps to county equipment logs she'd captured. At 5:45 p.m., Denise's phone buzzed. She read the message, then smiled. "The State Investigation Unit accepted our packet," she said. "They're coordinating with federal civil rights. This is bigger than Kedar now." Minutes later, Tessa's main social account was suspended. Her backup triggered automatically, blasting their evidence to journalists, watchdog groups, and civil rights lawyers across the country. "They can't bury this anymore," Tessa said, watching the shares climb. "Too many eyes." By 7:30, two unmarked sedans with state plates pulled into the drive. Four investigators stepped out, quiet and professional. They photographed everything. Survey stakes with GPS coordinates. The dented barn. The broken latch. The blood smear. They paid special attention to the shed. The new lock. The scratches. They removed it carefully and tagged it. "We'll be executing warrants at the sheriff's office tonight," the lead investigator said. "Do not engage with deputies. If they come, record and call us." They drove off into the dark, leaving the farmhouse kitchen feeling less like a refuge and more like headquarters. Denise's phone buzzed again. She read the text twice, then looked at Elias. "They lied under oath," she said. "The body cam archive has been located." The footage that was supposed to be missing wasn't missing at all. It was sitting in an evidence room, waiting. The next morning, under high ceilings and cold lights, state investigators played those body cams in open court. Deputies removing cameras before entering Elias's property. Griggs clearly planting the baggie near the tool bench. Audio of jokes about clearing Boon out for the developer. Logs showing county signal jammers activated right when Tessa's streams died. Text messages between deputies coordinating their stories. By noon, it was over for them. Sheriff Wade Kedar walked out of the courthouse in handcuffs, escorted by state police. Civil rights violations. Evidence tampering. Conspiracy. The same cameras he'd used for grandstanding now captured him ducking his head. Deputy Lyle Griggs followed, no uniform now, fired on the spot when his body cam contradicted his sworn statements. His own handcuffing techniques used on him as he snarled at journalists. Cal Wren tried to leave through a side door. Investigators met him there. Fraud. Corruption. Property theft tied to rigged code enforcement and sheriff's raids. The county commission called an emergency meeting and froze all pending property transfers. Investigations into every seizure began. On the courthouse steps, reporters turned their cameras on Rena. "We saw wrong being done," she told them. "We kept records. We didn't back down." That evening, Elias drove home to a sight he hadn't expected. Trucks lined his fence. Neighbors, some who'd looked away in the feed store, stood in his yard with tools and lumber. Nobody gave speeches. They just started working. Barn door rehung. Latches replaced. Fences rest-rung. Temporary shelters put up. Someone had pulled strings to get his animals released from county holding. His goats crowded the fence, bleating as he walked pen to pen, checking each one. The young doe limped, but she was there. Rena arrived with a check, the first installment of restitution the county would owe. "We're starting a community legal fund with it," she said. "So the next person they target isn't fighting alone." At sunset, Elias lifted a new sign onto its posts at the front of his drive. Simple white letters. Solid wood. Boon Family Farm. Still here. He leveled it carefully as Tessa filmed with her borrowed camera. This time, not as an act of desperation, but as proof. Neighbors kept working as darkness fell, stringing temporary lights to finish repairs. The farm, once an isolated target, had become a symbol of something else entirely. When Elias's phone buzzed, it was messages from other farmers. Other towns. People who'd seen the story and realized their own wasn't so different. The same tactics. The same pressure. The same fear. Now, they knew there was another way to respond. Not by lashing out. By documenting. By standing together. By refusing to disappear quietly.